me about Memphis that I don't already know.
There's nothing you can tell me about Memphis.
From the boardroom to the streets.
I don't already know.
With Mike from Memphis, man. Together we can fix things. Really?
When you say I want to be treated fairly, and I want a voice.
Yeah.
I want.
He saw things weren't fair, so he chose. It's Memphis 360.
In the meantime, in between time, we got folks shooting people up out the frame. Anybody said a word. We've become accustomed to people dying in this city.
Yeah. It's Memphis 360.
Turning the TV on and the news and see our loved ones and see young people that are out of control. And now you see, okay. We talk about incarceration. We talk about the youth. We talk about giving them the ability. We talk about investing in young people and investing in the community. See, I hate ignorance. I hate when people make decisions about things and they make statements and they haven't done their research.
How can you fix the problem when you don't even know what the problem is?
We need some help in this city.
It's Memphis 360.
See, I hate ignorance.
It's Memphis 360. Man.
And good evening. We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Memphis 360, the television show that we say you have to be able to go from the boardroom to the streets. How can you fix what's going on in the streets? How can you service the citizens in the manner that they deserve to be serviced? How can you represent them if you don't know what they're actually going through? You know, we continue to elect all of these people, and it's almost like once they are elected and get into those positions, they forget where they come from. You know, there has been some debates going on here in the city of Memphis, especially the mayoral debates. They had one at Christian Brothers last night. And I heard it was a pretty interesting debate. You know, they talked to them about what are their crime plans? What are their initiatives? How are they going to fix the ills and woes that are going on here in the city of Memphis? Because crime is still off the chain. I heard a lot of them just kind of hemmed and hawed, and some of them gave standard answers, and some of them were actually prepared for the forum and have actually some good ideas. So this is my thing. This is very, very, very important. This election is very important. It could be pivotal. It could be the turning point here in the city of Memphis. We have so much to offer. Look, we have our own utility. We produce natural gas. We're the gateway to the West. We have a port here in the city of Memphis. We have an NBA team. We got Liberty Bowl Stadium. We got Beale Street. Everybody from all over the region come here to the city of Memphis, and Memphis is the key to this region. So it is very important in how you vote. But let me tell you something. You need to be an informed voter. You need to take the time to find out about these candidates, because I heard last night there were 18 individuals that are actually running for mayor in this city. 18. They're going to split the vote all over the place, especially the black vote. All right. So it's very crucial that we come together to actually be informed about these individuals and what they have to offer and what they can actually do for the city of Memphis and for the citizenry of this city. I pay a lot of taxes in this city. I do. And I'm going to do everything I can to spread the word, to try to keep people interested and to get them to not just push the button because you know somebody. All right? Not just push the button because somebody has name recognition or they have one of those names that everybody likes to vote for. Not to just go along with the status quo. We can no longer continue to do the same thing and expect different results. We can't do that. All right? You, the citizens of the city of Memphis, deserve better. I deserve better. Your vote counts. whether you believe it or not, because some people say, oh, I don't vote because it don't do nothing, all of that kind of stuff. If you don't vote, then you're not taking an active role and participation in what's going on in this city. And you really and truly need to, okay? That's number one. So we got the mayoral election. I heard that Mr. Covett may have withdrawn from the race. That's what I heard. I'm not sure. I haven't confirmed it yet. So if that is, in fact, the case, that gives a whole nother dynamic to the mayoral race. Because we all know that Mr. Covett is a Republican and he was going to draw the Republican votes, and he was one of the only Republicans in the race. So now those Republicans, they're either going to do one or two things. They're either going to abstain and not going to vote, or they're going to get behind a candidate that's going to be pushing a crime agenda, because they're definitely for reducing crime in this city. When we talk about crime, I saw something on the news where the DA, Mr. Steve Mulroy, and the mayor, Jim Strickland, were kind of going back and forth. This time, I'm with Mr. Strickland. I'm gonna tell you. There was a young lady who pulled up onto the precinct parking lot, I believe, down at Range Station, and her boyfriend or someone had been involved in an incident a couple of months prior. There was a black Charger, which is, we know the police drive black Chargers, that she felt was following her. She pulled onto the precinct parking lot. The black Charger pulled onto the precinct parking lot. She started shooting at the police car on the parking lot. Now, DA Mulroy dropped all charges. And I'm like, what? You shooting at the police on a police parking lot and they dropped the charges? His thought process was, well, her boyfriend was killed a couple of months ago and she was traumatized and she felt that she was being followed, so therefore she fired on that police car. You can't do that. You can't just arbitrarily shoot somebody, and especially on a police parking lot. You'd have made it to the police precinct. Get the police. Not necessarily just start shooting at people. See, that's our problem. We're not holding these individuals accountable for what they do. If you're going to carry a gun, there's a lot of things that you have to be responsible for. You can't just shoot people. You can't just shoot at people. And don't get me wrong. I understand that everybody's on edge. I'm on edge. I'm very vigilant. I'm actually hyper vigilant when I'm in the streets. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if Mike Williams, former president of the Memphis Police Association, representing 2,000 police officers in the city of Memphis, retired military, y'all would be trying to hang me from the yardarm. He was the police. He knew better. Well, I'm scared. That doesn't matter. You're trained. See, and that's the problem with a lot of people that are committing crimes in this city. They're not being held accountable. They're being released from jail. That's why it's so crucial also that the individual that we put in office for mayor, they have a crime plan to reduce the crime in this city. That's something that has to happen. We got so much going on. We got so many good attributes in this city. As you can see, I am wearing a t-shirt. Y'all know I'm normally suited and booted. I got on a tie and a suit and all of that. But I said for a couple of weeks this summer, I'm going to represent organizations that are out here doing great and wonderful things in the community. The one that I have on today is Stop the Killing, Cut the Beef. Stop the killing, cut the beef. And there's a gentleman out in Orange Mound, and I guess that's why it's orange, named Mr. Keith Leachman. He is actually doing great things out there in the Orange Mound community. A couple of weeks ago, he had an event at the park right next to Melrose High School. They fed all of these kids. They gave away all of these different things, trying to engage the youth. And that's what we have to do. We have to engage the youth, people. And I believe on last weekend, stop the killing, cut the beef. They did a backpack school supply giveaway. This is to help the young people that are out there in the community, those young ladies, those mothers, because we have a lot of single parent households in this community, and they need help. So he got with some sponsors and other individuals, and they got together and bought all of these backpacks with all of these school supplies, and they gave them away to the kids. And everybody know normally around this time of year when we're going back to school, we actually, different organizations are coming together to try to assist these young people and these young families that are out here, because we have to show that we care, people. These are our people. This is our village. And we have to make sure that we're trying to help them, assist them along the way, because some of us are so blessed. God continues to put his hands upon us, continue to bless us, continue to favor us with everything that's going on. He still continues to allow us the ability to be able to maneuver and to get through all of the things that are happening in this city. Anyway, I got a good show for you. I got a guest in the studio tonight. I have Mr. Thomas Burrell. Yay! You know what? I was telling Mr. Burrell, when they sent me his press kit, I saw him standing up next to this tractor in his overalls, because he is the founder and president of the Black Farmer and Agriculturalists Association. And they have done so many great things all across the country, and not just across the country. And reading his bio and different things, they're all over the world helping individuals that are in the farming industry. Because we know that a lot of the black farmers have been neglected. They've been, kind of cast to the side. Stop looking at me crazy, because it's proven in history. I'm just telling you what I know, all right? And it kind of reminded me of, I was telling them about when I was down in Cleveland, Mississippi back in the 60s, picking cotton with my grandmother and going to the watermelon patch and the blueberries and the peach trees, and we raised them hogs and slaughtered them hogs, and woo, make me think about them tea biscuits that were so good. But we got Mr. Thomas Burrell in the studio, and they got some issues that are going on. I had a young lady on last week, and we talked about Blue Oval City. And it's not just one thing that pertains to Blue Oval City, but guess what? A lot of that land out there belonged to black people. And I know about the state trying to come in and do all of these things and take charters and all of that. I had been read up on all of that stuff prior to Mr. Burrell. But we're going to get him up here, and we're going to talk to him about some of the things that are going on out there in Fayette County, Lauderdale County, and the surrounding areas, and how it's going to affect those individuals that have had that land for so long. Some of it is inherited. Some individuals have bought into it, you know what I mean? And we just want to make sure that they're going to get a fair shake in all of the things that are going to be blessed, because that's a $6 billion project that's going in out there. We need to get some of that money too, all right? So, I am so glad you tuned in to Wake Up. I always say Wake Up Memphis, Jesus, Memphis 360. And we're going to open up the phone lines. And if you would like to talk to Mr. Burrell, you got questions for Mr. Burrell, I'm sure he would be more than happy to answer your questions. So we're going to take a real quick commercial break so we can get into this thing, because, I think he's a talker and he may want to talk about what's going on out there. So we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Do not touch that dial.
Hey folks, it's Issa Haddad here. I got some good news and a special invitation for you to come see me here at Sunrise, Collierville. Come on down, check out my inventory with new, pre-owned, and certified vehicles to choose from. I can get you financed when no one else can. Come on by, bring your family. I treat you like family. Come see me, Issa, here at the #1 dealership in the Mid-South, 4605 Houston Levy Road, Sunrise, Collierville. Come on down, check out my inventory with hundreds of vehicles to choose from, pre-owned, new, and certified.
Good news from Sunrise Chevrolet. Get in your new vehicle today. Come on in, ask for Issa. Bankrupt, slow pay, bad credit, it's okay. Let Issa put you in your brand new truck or car today when you shop at Sunrise Chevrolet, Collierville.
And don't forget, ask for me, Issa.
Can you actually imagine hosting your next event at the all-new SVP Banquet and Event Center? Yes, spacious, beautiful venue with plenty of parking, located in the heart of East Memphis. Let us host your next intimate birthday gathering, family repast, bachelorette party, wedding and reception, baby shower, corporate meeting, social club event. Call us today. Don't wait. 901-244-6874. The all-new SVP Banquet and Event Center.
For over 20 years, OPOX has been keeping the Mid-South
warm in the winter and cool in the summer.
OPOX is family owned and operated, so our family will take care of yours every step of the way. And right now you can double up and save. Buy a new AC unit and get 50% off a new furnace to match it. Count on OPOX for fast and professional heating and cooling services. Count on OPOX.
And welcome back to Memphis 360, the television show. We say that you have to be able to go from the boardroom to the streets. And we have Mr. Thomas Burrell in the studio today. And Mr. Thomas Burrell want to talk to us a little bit about, Blue Oval City and how the farmers out there in Haywood, Lauderdale County, what issues they got going on, or how can they benefit from all of this, or what are their expectations, just different things like that. Mr. Burrell is the president and founder of the Black Farmers and Agriculturalists Association, Inc. Welcome to the show, sir.
Michael, how are you, sir?
I am fine.
Good.
I am fine. I've been following Blue Oval ever since the inception, ever since they talked about bringing it to this area. And I'm like, oh man, that's a great, wonderful thing. It's a great initiative, provide a lot of jobs, a lot of stimulus to the community and different things like that. But before we get to that, tell us a little bit about the Black Farmers and Agriculturalists Association.
Here again, Michael, thank you for having us. As you said, I am the president of the Black Farmers and Agriculturalists Association Incorporated. We are a roughly 20,000 member organization. We have members all the way from California to New York. A lot of our members are absentee landowners or heirs at law, and that is to say they have interest in agriculture. They have interest in land in Mississippi and Texas and North and South Carolina, and Memphis, in Tennessee. They may live in Chicago, they may live in Detroit, but they are the new owners of the land. Great grandma, grandpa died, and now they are the heirs at law. Keep in mind, for the last 100 plus 50 years, ever since, Michael, 1866, the year after, here again, we were freed, as it were, from the 13th Amendment, Congress passed an act called the Civil Rights Act of 1866 that allowed African Americans to be parties to sue for the protection of persons and property, as is enjoyed by white citizens. So we started accumulating land from 1866, as it were, to 1910, Michael. We had acquired over 20 million acres of land throughout the South. The statistics indicate that between 1900 and 1910, African Americans purchased on a per capita basis 8% more land than white folks.
Really?
Yes. So land was basically what we were. That was the economic foundation for the African American community. Unfortunately, after 1910, for a variety of reasons, our land interests have declined steadily. We have lost roughly 15 million of the 20 million acres of land. There are reports that say that the African American community has lost, Michael, over $320 billion with a B
Wow.
in real estate and land over the last 100 plus years.
Okay.
We still own roughly between 25 to 40 billion dollars worth of property.
Okay.
Unfortunately, though, as you said, Michael, most of the land, 99.9% of the land that we own, is owned by what we call heirs at law. And that is a situation where granddaddy, grandmama died without a will. And it's left now to basically the children, the grandchildren. We use the analogy, Michael, that you may be driving through the rural and you'll see a town, and let's just call the town Turkey Creek. Turkey Creek, but at the bottom it says unincorporated.
Right.
That simply means it is ungovernable, it is ungoverned. There is no city council, there will be no city hall, no police department, etc. It exists, the town does, in name only. It is a town, but it is what? Unincorporated. 99% of the land that we own today is in that same area. It is unincorporated. Therefore, the billions of dollars that we made reference to that we still own is unavailable.
Oh.
We can't leverage it. Now, when we talk about opportunities like Blue Oval City used to be, and well, for all intents and purposes, they still are, the two largest automobile producing states in the United States.
Wow.
The third largest state now is Alabama. The fourth largest state is Tennessee. And Kentucky. So here again, these individuals, there was a time, Michael, we will leave the South going to Detroit, going to Indianapolis to work in the automobile industry for Ford, Chrysler, and General Motors. And now these corporations are literally moving into our backyards. You've got Nissan in Mississippi. You've got Toyota in Tupelo. You've got all of the majors now. General Motors in Spring Hill, Tennessee. You've got Volkswagen moving to Chattanooga. You have Mercedes-Benz basically in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. We can go on and on. Hyundai, Honda, just all of the manufacturers. Now, the question is, or an opportunity that's being created, how do we utilize our land to take advantage of this boom, this blessing that is now literally, Michael, in our backyards? However, unfortunately, as we said, the land that we own that is oftentimes right next door, adjoining, adjacent, contiguous to these what we call the automobile manufacturers, and yet we are not able to take advantage of it because of the way we own land.
Wow. You know, that is so interesting. You say that because even when I was stationed at Fort Campbell a long time ago, like you talk about Spring Hill, Tennessee, and I remember when the automobile industry put a plant in up there, and it was like, oh man, you had the industrial age when everybody moved from the South because they wanted to get away from the farm.
Precisely.
You know what I mean? They wanted to get a lot of these young people that want nothing to do with the farm. They moved to the North and garnered those jobs, and they paid really, really well.
They did indeed.
They had unions and all of that kind of stuff. But as you notice too, a lot of them that moving back down south, they don't want them to have a union.
Precisely.
They don't want them to have a union.
Precisely.
Plus, like Tennessee is what you call a right to work state. Tennessee, the state of Tennessee does not recognize unions. Now, even though, like with the police association, you have an association and you work out a contract with the city or whomever, but the state of Tennessee itself proper, they don't recognize unions. So they're not trying to, well, first of all, you can come down here, build cheaper, buy up a lot of that unincorporated land and try to get it at a under market value.
Fire sale, as we call it.
A fire sale. And then even the individuals that are actually going to work in the factories themselves will not, or they're hoping, are not going to receive the same wages as in the north.
Precisely. So one of the things that we're doing here, in particular in the Haywood, Fayette, Tipton, West Tennessee area, as it relates to this new impetus, the Ford Motor Corporation, or its Blue Oval City as it's called, we're asking and trying to get as many of our members who are landowners to incorporate their land. We use the phrase, we want you to A, incorporate, and B, collaborate. Okay? Incorporating simply means now you're putting it in a posture where it is leverageable. Okay? Leverageable means you can use it to borrow money to reinvest in some of the collateral opportunities. When we say collateral opportunities, if we can imagine Ford Motor Company being a planet, then around that planet you're going to have all these satellites. You're going to have suppliers. They're going to be needing warehouse space. They're going to need, here again, hotels and service stations and supermarkets. We have traditionally focused just on the labor component. Now, as you said, when we left the South years ago, going to Detroit, as it were, we were basically providing labor. Now, Detroit is moving, Ford Motor Company is moving to the same cotton fields that black folk left 70 years ago. They are building this, which is the largest automobile assembly plant in the United States, smack dab, as it were, Michael, in the middle of cotton fields that people left 70 years ago going to. So to show you how things have changed. But here again, because most of the land that's owned by African Americans right next to this plant is heir property. So now how do these heirs, what do they do to maximize the, shall we say, economic development potential? First and foremost, a corporation will almost never do business with an unincorporated entity. Okay, corporations do business with corporations. So we're telling and asking our members, and we're going to be holding meetings. We have held a meeting already, and we're going to be in Brownsville, Tennessee on Thursday, August the 3rd at the Carver High School Gymnasium, which is located at 705 Jefferson Street in Brownsville. That meeting is going to start at 11 o'clock. Now, we had a meeting about a month ago near the Ford plant, and we had approximately 70 black families who were saying, you know what, it's time for us to do something. There was a time, Michael, that it was taboo even to talk about the heir property. For whatever reason, grandma didn't want to talk to the children about it. The children didn't want to talk to the grandchildren about it. And what we're saying now, if you love your grandchildren, don't leave this problem for them to solve. It's time for us now, whether it's in Tennessee, this is a wake-up call, whether it's in Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, we have the same problem basically where we own land. So we are hoping that this impetus, this is a model that can be emulated, that can be repeated in Alabama and North Carolina. In other words, we've got to do something about this problem. There's simply too much money on the table. Now, this project at Blue Oval started out as a $5.6 billion. However, 2 weeks ago, the Biden administration gave Ford an additional $9.2 billion.
What?
Yes, to be divided between the plant here in Tennessee and the plant up in Kentucky. So now the plant in Tennessee is up to an $11.4 billion opportunity.
Wow.
Now you talk about the potential to create millionaires.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
11.4 billion.
Man, I wish I had some of that land. I don't mean no harm. I wish I had some of that land. Jesus Christ. And I'm going to tell you this, and they better be careful too, why it may be so important that you guys incorporate, because prior to you and I talking, like I said, I've been kind of following this. And I've been watching the comptroller in the state of Tennessee. And I've been watching them trying to take charters, or they're threatening to take charters from certain cities because they wanted everybody to come under the county as opposed to being able to govern themselves. And that's
Key
another
phrase.
way.
Key phrase, govern themselves.
Exactly. And that's another way of taking it out of your hands and putting it into the hands of individuals that may not have your best interests at heart, because they already have an agenda.
An agenda.
Okay.
Well, when you're talking about this kind of money, billions of dollars.
Yeah. That's going to ostensibly generate even more billions.
When we turn, this is what we were saying about what we've lost. In other words, when we look at the 326 billion that we've lost, can you imagine how many businesses we could reinvest in if we had 300, if the African American community still had $326 billion. But all is not lost. Again, we still have billions of dollars worth of agricultural land, but it's a question now of how do we tap, for the lack of a better phrase, into that. And as I said, it has to be, among other things, incorporated. So we're asking our members to A, incorporate, and B, collaborate.
Hey, the number to call is 244-6874, 244-6874 if you have a question for Mr. Thomas Burrell. Hey, I know a lot of people, just like Miss Rogers, Miss Patricia Rogers, are from places like Brownsville, and I think she's from Brownsville. And I was talking to Miss Burrell. My grandfather was actually up in Ripley, Tennessee, and we used to go up there all the time to hang out and do different things. And there are a lot of people here in the city of Memphis, actually, that are possibly heir landowners, because your grandmother, your uncle, your aunt, your whomever had property up there at that particular time. And this is something that you definitely want to tune into and be aware of. You know, when you talk about politics, we're telling you that you need to be an informed voter. Well, guess what? When we talk about business and things that are major happening in your area that you may be able to benefit from, you don't want to miss those opportunities. You know, they're talking about having a meeting in Brownsville, and what is it, the 3rd or the 5th?
The 3rd of August.
The 3rd of August. You know, it may be worth a drive to go up there and to take a look at what's actually going on, so that you can, in fact, be a part of this. And that's one of the things that we have to become more aware of when we talk about collaboration and being collaborative. Okay, caller, you're on Memphis 360. Go ahead.
Larry Rogers, I have a question for the gentleman. My grandparents owned land, and it's very interesting that I just happened to catch this show. However, we had acres, well, they had acres and acres and acres of land, but because of the fact, you know, they was uneducated and, you know, just didn't know protocol, they lost it to the, I guess, county or whatever. Is there any kind of way that we can retract that up and dig up paperwork to see if that falls up under, or is that a lost cause? I always wanted that because my mom always spoke about that they had lots of land. But of course, as my grandparents are deceased, and I don't know how many relatives are still there.
Where was the land at, Larry?
I believe it was in Red Sands, Mississippi.
Okay.
Well, Larry, probably your land is a part of that statistics that I made reference to.
That we lost.
The 15 million acres that we lost. Once it's lost, it is almost lost. The question now is, what do we do to save what we have remaining? Unfortunately, as we said, we own about 20 million acres of land, and Mississippi, believe it or not, on a per capita basis, there were more black landowners in the state of Mississippi than any other state.
Wow.
Mississippi was heavily agricultural.
I can believe that.
Okay.
Yeah, I can believe that.
And you got to remember now how we acquired land in the first place. After slavery, Michael and Larry, we were already managers of plantations. We managed the plantation for the white landowner. During the Civil War, most of them were incapacitated as a result of the war, number one.
Oh, wow.
And secondly, their currency was outlawed, the Confederate dollar. So therefore, you had black folk, Leroy and Dora, as it were, had 12 children. Okay. Now, so when the white landowners needed to generate some capital sets that we had acquired 200 during the previous 200 years, to now purchase the land that Mr. Bobo and Mr. Cody, for the lack of a better phrase, needed to sell to generate some cash.
Wow.
So therefore, we were the likely candidates. So where you had more slaves during that period, you're going to naturally have more potential landowners.
Yeah. Okay. Well, go ahead, Larry.
That's basically what I want to ask. But I mean, was it a lost cause, or is it just impossible to to track and try to get back? But I think he pretty much answered my question. Is look like it might be a lost cause. I hate to hear that though, because there was a lot of substantial amount of land, from my understanding. My grandmama always told me how they owned acres and acres and lots of land and stuff like that.
Wow.
But as time passed, nobody was there to do paperwork and all this stuff like that. So, and then if they died off, then I guess it just fell in the hand of the state.
Wow.
Now, when he said, I hate to use the phrase lost cause, but we'll just use his phrase tonight.
Okay.
But keep in mind, when he said time passed, there is not that I'm an attorney or trying to practice law, but there is something called the statutes of limitations. Meaning you have to do a certain thing within a certain amount of time. And he acknowledged his grandmother, and not that we are blaming her or any other, but they just didn't understand. They didn't know. In a lot of cases, they were intimidated. So keep in mind, they were threatened. A lot of people had to load up the truck, as it were, and move to Detroit and Chicago.
Beverly Hills. These guys at Beverly Hills.
But, and all of these things happen, unfortunately.
Had to get out of Dodge.
Believe it or not, right next to this Ford plant, there is a farm that's owned by the Baptist Church that was in the early 50s and 60s, was referred to as, quote unquote, Tent City. Tent City was a farm.
I remember that.
That was used in the 50s and 60s in Fayette and Hayward County as a result of black folk who were registering to vote. The white landowners then would retaliate against them and put them off of the farms. So the church purchased this property.
So they'd have somewhere to go.
So they would have some place to go, and they literally erected tents for people to stay in until their cousins from Chicago or Detroit or Indianapolis or Memphis or St. Louis could come, or until they could find. I was talking to a gentleman a couple of days ago. He said his family was 1 day away from Tent City. The father went to vote or register to vote on, say, Monday. They were going to threaten to put him off the land on Tuesday, but they found a house. But for finding another house, he said, we would have been relegated to Tent City. So there was a lot of intimidation and threats, etc.
Right. So he answered your question, Larry?
Yes, sir, he did.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for calling in, Doc. As always, we really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. It's a pleasure.
Okay. Hey, the number to call is 901-244-6874, 901-244-6874. We have Mr. Thomas Burrell in the house. He is the president and founder of the Black Farmers and Agriculturalists Association, and they're trying to get farmers and landowners and individuals to incorporate the land that's out there in Lauderdale and Fayette County, because you got this major opportunity called Blue Oval City that's coming to that area. And why not the farmers benefit from it? Why not individuals that have worked that land and held on to that land, and that land has been in their family for years and years and years? And why not be able to generate some type of wealth for your family? Because everybody else is going to benefit from all of the good things. And let me tell you this. I am not against Blue City Oval. I am not against Blue City Oval. But I am for individuals, everybody having a seat at the table, and everybody being able to benefit for the blessings and the things that are coming into our area. They're going to have a meeting on August the 3rd up there in Brownsville, and anybody that is interested, anybody that has land, anybody that wants to participate and even just become knowledgeable about what's going on up there, you probably should go to that meeting. And where's that meeting going to be again?
It is going to be held in Brownsville, Tennessee, at the Carver High Gymnasium, which is located at 705 Jefferson Street, Brownsville, Tennessee, 38012. That is Carver High Gymnasium, located at 705 Jefferson Street, Brownsville, Tennessee, 38012.
So approximately how much land are we talking about up there?
We're talking about several thousand acres that is just that African Americans still own.
Wow.
That is what we would call contiguous to and adjacent to and surrounding the Blue Web Oval site. I tell people jokingly, when Ford, basically the state of Tennessee purchased about 4,000 acres. 4,000 acres of land.
Really?
We'll explain why. This is the largest automobile assembly plant.
So they've already purchased 4,000?
They've already purchased the 4,000 acres. The state did. And the state now is leasing that land to Ford Motor Company. In other words, I used to work for the automobile industry myself in Flint, Michigan, and you had the Buick plants, the Chevrolet plants. 4,000 acres project is extremely large. When Henry Ford bought what is called the River Rouge plant in Detroit, which was the largest automobile facility at that time, it was basically 2,000 acres. And they built the Mustangs, they built farm tractors, they built airplanes. So 4,000 acres. This plant literally, Michael, is 6 miles long. That is a large assembly facility. 6 miles. So here again, the potential for wealth creation. And when we're talking about wealth creation, we're not just talking about jobs, which is important. But for those of us who are of the age to where we're not going to be able to.
I ain't trying to turn a boat.
Hello, turn a boat, put a brake on a wheel. But we do have some assets, i.e. our land. And what we're talking about is how now you made reference to generational wealth. You can't create generational wealth if you're going to sell what you have. Unfortunately, as Larry was saying, when that land and his family was lost, that killed it for the next generation. So now the other generations, the subsequent generations, the grandchildren and great-grandchildren are not in a position now to utilize the equity and the economic development that is potentially inherent in owning that land. So keep in mind, we still have about 5 million acres around the country. And we want to make sure that we are doing this, creating this very same model for individuals in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, North and South Carolina, which is where we own the majority of land. In the first instance.
How long have you been doing this, Mr. Burrell?
Basically, I grew up on a farm here in Tipton County, Tennessee, and I came along during the Vietnam era. And I spent 3 years in the military, one of which was in Vietnam. And as I said, I worked. My family, we would go from the cotton patch to the auto patch. And I was the youngest of 8, so most of my sisters and brothers and my uncles had moved to Detroit and Flint and Saginaw and Pontiac. So I followed suit, and but I was drafted while I was in college, and when I got out of the military, I went back to school. When I graduated from the University of Michigan there, and I worked for the automobile industry myself for an additional 8 years. But my love was in agriculture, so I moved back to Tennessee in '75 and got back in the family business, which is agriculture. And at that time, we noticed that there were a lot of black farmers who were being discriminated against. So we started lobbying and advocating for them, and subsequently won the largest civil rights lawsuit in the history of this country, called the Black Farmers Lawsuit. We won $3 billion back in the 1999s.
Okay, caller, you're on Memphis 360. Go ahead, caller.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I wanted to ask Mr. Burrell a question.
Uh-huh.
How many farmers have already actually incorporated their land? I understand that Terrence Cannon has already incorporated their hundreds of acres of land.
So she wants to know how many farmers have already incorporated.
As a result
in
of
that
what
area.
we're doing now, we've got several families there in the area who have incorporated their property, and they are now talking to their neighbors. The Cannon family, Mr. Terrence Cannon, interestingly enough, his father, he said before he died, before his father died, 25 years ago, incorporated their property.
Are you serious?
Yes, so he is one of the few families in that area who saw and had the vision, Michael, to see that, wait a minute, I'm not going to leave my farm to my children without a will, undivided, what they call fractional interest in land. So they incorporated. So we do have a handful of individuals who have already bought into this model of incorporating in order to collaborate.
Go ahead, caller. You're on Memphis 360.
How you doing, Mike? This Alan in Baltimore. Let me ask Thomas Burrell. Thank you for being an activist for that black farmers settlement when everybody got $50,000, $1 billion settlement that President Obama signed. My family benefited. Let me ask you something.
Hold on, Alan, you saying your family benefited?
Yes, we was heirs. We heirs now. Yeah, because I used to call Thomas Burrell.
Okay.
And he was an activist. He
Okay.
was not a lawyer. He was an activist.
Right.
He was sitting at the table and trying to get more. Because I think it was $12 billion on the table, but it was negotiated down to $1 billion, and everybody should have got a $50,000 check.
Okay.
Based on if they filed for a claim.
Okay.
Let me ask you something, because I majored in agriculture, Mr. Burrell. The striking down of affirmative action, when you were saying that in the 60s, you fought in the Vietnam War, you went to Detroit, probably made a lot of money. Now, blacks can't get minority contracts because they struck it down. How would that affect the agriculture for black farmers? Because everything is contractual.
That's an interesting.
I'll listen. Thank you now.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work, Mr. Burrell.
Thank you. And are you still enjoying that $50,000?
No, our family, we had to divide it like a piece of pie. So I had five uncles, including my daddy, so that's 5 and 3 aunts. So it had to be divided by 8.
All right. But here again, Alan, to your
So I benefited because I was an heir. My father and my mother passed on, so I benefited because I was an heir.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you this.
In our lineage.
Mr. Burrell got a question for you, Alan.
Do you all own any land? Do you own any land now, Alan?
Yes, my aunt, she pays the taxes to the county tax collector. That's the local courthouse. I'm not going to deal with. It's in Arkansas. My aunt take care of the.
So you are an heir. You all are.
Yes, as a family, yes.
So are you all considering incorporating that property?
You're talking about her because she's the minister, and I try to keep it simple because once you're in charge, you got to deal with the risk and all the. You got to talk to her. I got a number, but my grandfather left it in his name, and left my aunt in charge of it. It's not incorporated. It's a small farm. It's like about 27 acres.
Okay.
In Arkansas.
But to his point, Michael, he talked.
Thank you so much, Alan.
Thanks, Alan. He talked about affirmative action on the one hand.
Yes.
Okay, and whether or not it will have an effect positively or negatively on, shall we say, opportunities that we're talking about with land.
Right.
Land is it in and of itself has a value that is what we would call intrinsic. It is inherent. It exists independently of what somebody else says.
Okay.
Okay, the $300 billion that we lost, that is intrinsic value.
Okay.
Has nothing to do with affirmative action. In other words, we own property that we can leverage, that is leverageable.
Right.
Okay, independently of what somebody else says it's worth.
Right.
It is intrinsic. It exists internally. Whereas affirmative action deals with what someone is going to give you as a secondary benefit for your being a particular individual.
Right.
Remember what I said earlier. The Civil Rights Act of 1866, rightly understood, says that all persons, and I'm paraphrasing, okay, who are citizens of every state will have the right in every state to what? Be a party, to enjoy the same privileges of giving evidence for the protection of person and property. The first Civil Rights Act had nothing to do basically with our sitting next to someone. Okay? Whether we were in a theater, going back to his affirmative action. It had to do with what? Property. When African Americans bought that 20 million acres, they didn't need to get permission from anybody, did they?
No.
In other words, that 20 million acres had intrinsic value. The value was internal. Now, sure, we're not advocating or saying that, you know, the loss of affirmative action, it doesn't affect the African American community, but those of us who have land, let's go back to Ford. Ford needs that property, whether it's affirmative action or otherwise.
Yeah.
It's an intrinsic value. They need it not because you are black or because you are white, because you have something that they need. All right? One of the most wealthiest individuals is an individual by Steve, I think his name is Steve Wynn, in Las Vegas. What Steve Wynn did, he says, I would go and buy up small parcels of land between the casinos, knowing that when they got ready to expand, they were going to need what I have.
Yeah.
I tell some people sometimes jokingly, the best thing that can have the biggest asset for black folk out there at Blue Oval City is you're in the way. Okay? In order for Blue Oval City and other folk to expand, they're going to need what you have. Affirmative action notwithstanding, in spite of affirmative action.
Restaurants, hotels, stores, you name it, shopping malls, what have you, because once they put that facility out there, then it's possibly going to generate other opportunities, as Mr. Burrell has said, and for expansion purposes.
Precisely.
Those individuals, because you know, that's just like when I was looking for some land to build a house on. When I looked in, you know, and when you talk about intrinsic value, when I looked in Arlington, they wanted $20,000 an acre. So they were selling 2-acre plots for $40,000. But if I went out in North Memphis, I could get it for a couple of $100 or a couple of $1,000, you know. But that's because everybody wanted to move to Arlington, Tennessee. Everybody was trying to acquire that property. So it's supply and demand. You know, if that property is in demand or that area is in demand at that particular time, then guess what? You're going to pay.
You're going to pay.
You're going to pay.
Whether you're white, black, otherwise.
And it has nothing to do with race.
And that's why we call it an intrinsic value.
Okay.
And that's really why it's so unfortunate, Michael, that we've lost so much intrinsic value. That 15 million acres that we've lost, that was intrinsic value.
Wow. And we thought, a lot of people thought they were doing themselves a favor by getting off that property and moving up north and leaving it to whomever or whatever, or, you know, like you said, some of it was taken or what have you. So, okay, so what, is there a deadline? When is this plant supposed to be online?
This plant is already online.
Excuse me?
Yes.
They've already built the plant?
They're building it right now.
They're building it?
It's being built.
Oh.
The first vehicle, which is going to be an F-150 electric vehicle, is coming off of the assembly line in April of 2025.
Oh, wow.
2 years from now.
Okay.
But no, the money has already been allocated.
Okay.
The land has been purchased.
Right.
If you were to go out to that site now, which is if you were going up I-40 towards Jackson, Tennessee, and get off at exit 42 and go north on a little highway called 222, you will see what is being considered the largest automobile assembly plant
Wow.
in the United States.
Okay.
And as I said, I've worked for the automobile industry. I've worked for some of the big plants, but this is the largest plant that I have ever witnessed.
I may have to take a drive up there.
It is worth the drive.
I may have to take a drive up
Yeah.
there just to see it, because I like to, when I'm talking about things, I definitely like to have the perspective of I've seen it, I've touched it, I've
Yes.
experienced it, or what have you. But that would be a good drive for me and my wife one day, to just kind of get out and.
It would definitely be worth it.
Okay.
Get off on exit 42,
42.
going east on I-40.
Is that right before? Yeah, that's right before Jackson, because I normally
Right.
take 45 to go back over to 78 to get up to.
Well, here again, it's halfway between Memphis and Jackson.
Oh.
Exit 42, that is to say 42 miles.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay.
Mile marker 42.
Mile marker 42.
Mile marker 42.
Okay, okay.
And get off and go north on a highway called 222. And all the land that thy eye surveyeth will be the 4,000 acres
Wow.
that the Ford Motor facility, they're not calling it Blue Oval City for nothing. It is literally getting ready to be a town.
A city.
A city, yes.
Okay, so I want to thank you so much, Mr. Burrell. Is there anything else you want to tell the citizens out there before we get off the air?
Here again, whether you are in the Brownsville area, Tennessee, whether you're in Arkansas, Mississippi, incorporating this farmland is something that needs to be done. We can no longer afford to allow billions and billions of dollars to be elusive and unmarketable in our community. Michael, we appreciate you for providing this platform
thank
for us
you.
to get the word out. We appreciate you and hope that here again, the information that we have given today will cause some individuals to sit down with their uncles and aunts and says, we need to talk. We've got a problem.
Okay.
So.
Well, I want to thank you so much, and thank you to the Black Farmers and Agriculturalists Association. We wish you guys much success because we definitely want to see people do well. Like I said, we are not against Blue Oval. A lot of people will be able to benefit from it, not just the car manufacturer, but those individuals that have land and those individuals that have businesses in this area, because that's what it should be all about. Opportunities for everybody and not just the entity that's coming into the area. And I also hope and pray that the state of Tennessee government don't try to pull an okie doke on the individuals up there in that area, because I could see some of that happening with the state comptroller and, you know, them talking about taking charters away and talking about, you know, taking people's power away because, you know, they use the fact that, you know, we don't think you can govern yourselves and we have the ability to take your charter, and you know, they'll throw this crap in there about eminent domain in a minute. So you guys better incorporate your land. You better incorporate it so that you'll have a little bit more power, a little bit more standing to be able to protect yourselves. And also when Mr. Burrell talked about that intrinsic value, that would also add to that as well. Hey, I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to Memphis 360. And as always, it has been a plum-pleasing pleasure. I am representing Stop the Killing, Cut the Beef with my t-shirt tonight. If you are a member of an organization, a good organization that is doing great and wonderful things out here in the community, and you want me to represent your organization and wear your t-shirt on my show just for the summertime, because I'm going back to my suits. I'm going back to my suits when it gets a little cooler, okay? Because we definitely want to maintain our professionalism on this show as well. But I came up with the idea that I know a lot of organizations out there have t-shirts, and I will actually wear your t-shirt. Won't cost you nothing. I don't ask for any money or anything like that. Just give me the t-shirt, because I ain't paying for the t-shirt now. But I will actually wear it on my show, give you a little bit of advertisement, give you a little bit of plug. And, you know, we do have individuals that actually watch this show. So